So which of these are based on what you were doing in the 70s and 80s? Or did you have most of these things?
Yeah, pretty much all of these. The oscillators that I had back then were pretty different.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the digital Chor oscillators.
Right.
They were all pure analog.
Mm-hmm.
I fantasized about the digital Chor ones, and I even designed one on paper, but never actually built it. But sequencer is almost identical to what I built back then. The VCA is the same as what I built back then. The crossfader is the same. The keyer is very close. It's got a couple of extra features, but it's almost the same. The input amp is something new. The input amp is the opposite of the output amp. The input amp, because I have this special video format that I use throughout the system that's 1 volt peak to peak, plus and minus 1 volt, that you patch around between all the video modules. The input amp is something that takes cameras or external TVCs and converts that signal into the plus minus 1 volt that's patched throughout the system. In the old days, you had video as a separate path from the control voltage. They were completely separated, so video went through the back as standard 1 volt video, and then through a matrix or a patch bay or something to patch the video. And it went through the video path, and then the control voltage went through the front as a plus minus 5 volt signal through mini jacks. So
but
those
this lets you use
two
the video
paths were separate.
As
This
control.
allows them to be completely intermixed. There's no distinction at this point. There's no separation between video and control voltage. They're exactly the same thing. They're completely mixable and interchangeable. So, which opens the possibilities greatly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I like that these are so modular, each piece, that, you know,
yeah.
you can...
Yeah, that's another difference, is that stuff was built as big boxes, and sometimes there were 2 or 3 functions within a box. Sometimes the whole box was one device. Whereas this is broken down into the basic functions, and you can mix and match, build a system on what interests you. So you don't have to have, you know, one thing or another thing that somebody else might find interesting if you don't like it. So.
Do you ever create any types of, like, feedback loops through it? Like using output back in as the control to some level, or like...
Yeah. This stuff passes signals at such a high speed that those feedback loops create really fine little lines. So it works, but it can be a little weird. All right, so this is a keyer.
So basically based on certain tones, it fills in.
Yeah, it's a luminance keyer.
Oh, okay.
So it's
So
based on shades of gray. It's got 2 signal inputs, and you have a switch that you choose whether camera 1 is what you're using as the key source, or camera 2 is your key source. And then you have a key on off, so you can just turn the key off. And you have a key normal reverse, so you can, once you've defined the areas using the key clip, you can swap which camera goes into the 2 different areas you've defined. It's a soft-edged keyer. Right now it's set at hard edge, and the camera has some noise in it. It's a cheap surveillance camera. So if you adjust it for soft edge, instead of it suddenly transitioning from one image to the other, it now blends from one image to the other. And that kind of softens the noise that's happening during that transition, so it now looks like a smoother transition. The same with the subcarrier that was happening in the other thing. The color on the edges as you're going through that transition, the key clip sees that subcarrier as it's detecting the shade of gray, and that puts that subcarrier on the edge, so it puts color fringes on the edge as you choose your shade of gray for the keying.
I see.
There's a switch, however, that allows you to kill that color, and there's a switch that allows you to kill the noise. Now, the way it's implemented right now, it's shifting that key clip over. That's temporary. The final version won't shift that over. But with it filtered now, the color is not on those edges anymore. It's in the image, but it's not on those edges. But sometimes having that color on the edge is really a nice look, so it's not